Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's case is a little different. We've got some compelling evidence, a vital clue seemingly missed, and a lot more, but the court process is currently ongoing. Do you think this is a case cracked? This is called One for the Road. Leo Beauregard worked hard to ensure that he and his wife Noella would enjoy an early retirement in sunny Florida. The two met shortly before he left for the Philippines to serve in the Army Signal Corps in the South Pacific during World War II. After his stint in the military was over, he supported her, their son Ronald, and their daughter Gail by working as a machine operator in a container factory in his hometown of North Attleboro, Massachusetts. Leo disliked the cold weather in Massachusetts and looked forward to spending the remainder of their days in a warmer climate. Wise investments made by Leo in the Massachusetts real estate market would make sure that those dreams became a reality. In 1972, Leo and Noella made the move to Singer Island in Palm Beach County. There, they opened a gift shop/liquor store in West Palm Beach and enjoyed their days together. Sadly, in 1981, after 40 years of marriage, Noella would pass away, leaving Leo on his own. When the house seemed too big and full of memories, he decided to move to a fifth-floor apartment at Paradise Harbor. At the end of June in 1990, he had his bags packed and was about to fly back to his hometown for a month-long visit with relatives. From there, he would take a camper truck tour of Nova Scotia, Canada, and meet up with some old friends. At about 10 a.m. on June 29, 1990, a friend of Leo's had become concerned. The two were supposed to meet, but Leo didn't show up or return his phone calls, and he knew Leo was usually very punctual. The friend called the apartments and asked that someone go to Leo's room and check on him. When a maintenance worker entered, he immediately called paramedics. He had found Leo sitting, slumped down in a pale green chair, with a gash on the right side of his neck, and there was blood everywhere. Police were dispatched, but when they arrived, paramedics had already pronounced 68-year-old Leo dead. It appeared he had died from a single stab wound to the neck. An autopsy would show that he had suffered one 7-inch stab wound so deep it had almost exited the opposite side of his neck. His carotid artery had been severed as well as his jugular vein. Inside his home, investigators found blood splatter all around Leo, with large amounts on the wall near him and a small table beside his chair. On the table, they found a notebook. In it, dated June 26th, was the message, Mark, Phoenix House, with an address on 5 Mile Road, Plymouth, Michigan, 48170, and then a strange number code, number 179-237. As they looked further into his home, they found a few odd things. The name Mark was also written on a calendar for June 26th, as if it was an appointment or possibly a birthday reminder. There were some items missing, but other valuable items were left behind. Missing were Leo's wallet, along with a bracelet and ring that had been made from his late wife's rings. One of the most puzzling pieces of evidence found was a Busch beer can that sat on the same table as the notebook. The table and the notebook were covered in blood, but the beer can wasn't. In fact, there was no blood on it at all, but there was blood underneath it, suggesting someone consumed a beer after the killing of Leo. A bloody towel was also found that investigators thought the murderer might have used to clean themselves up. When neighbors were questioned, they were able to give investigators enough details about the person who was last seen at the apartment to draw a composite sketch of the man. Unfortunately, no leads from that sketch led to the discovery of the killer. When his friends and people in the community were questioned, they assured officers that Leo had no enemies that they knew of. In fact, he was very well liked, and the murder had angered many of them. He was known to help out when needed, and often volunteered for Humana Hospital Palm Beaches in West Palm Beach. When the police department started to run out of leads in 1992, they decided to call on a psychic detective named Noreen Renner. Noreen was trusted by law enforcement as a solid last resort tool and had even lectured at local departments and the FBI Academy in Quantico. In a 48 hours television taping session with a sketch artist, she described Leo's attacker as having, quote, hooded eyes, thin mouth, there is some sharpness in the nose, oval jaw. New leads were developed, but none led them any closer to their killer, and by 1995, the case was cold. Nothing new would develop until the North Palm Beach Police Department created a cold case squad in 2018, and Leo's case was re-examined. Investigators soon realized that the mysterious beer can taken from his apartment had sat in evidence for 29 years. It was sent to the sheriff's office DNA lab for testing, and in 2019, DNA was found on the lip of the beer can that didn't match Leo's profile. When the sample was entered into CODIS, they got a match to a 57-year-old man named Mark Stephen Gribben. Could this be the same Mark from Leo's notebook and calendar? When they looked into Gribben's past, they found that he had been in and out of prison multiple times on charges of armed robbery, burglary, and assault. During one of his stays in prison, he was inmate number 179-237, the same number written in the notebook. One stay was in a Michigan prison called Detroit Correctional Facility that had a wing called Phoenix House, and the address was the same one from the notebook as well. He left that facility on parole and was transferred to West Palm Beach on June 1st, 1990, just 28 days before Leo's murder. Mark's birthday, June 26th, was the same one written in Leo's calendar. While he lived with his mother in the area during that time, Mark was only 5 miles away from Leo's condo. Investigators soon traveled to Ohio, where Gribben currently lived, to question him and get a DNA sample for comparison. Gribben insisted that he didn't know Leo, knew nothing about the murder, and had never been in his home. He did, however, agree to give a DNA sample. When the sample was sent off for testing, it came back a perfect match to the beer can. He was arrested and charged with the second-degree murder of Leo Beauregard. A grand jury rejected the second-degree charge and instead changed it to first-degree murder. Gribben's public defender argued that they had no idea how the DNA got on the can, but it was not a murder weapon, and police had little else to go on. They also argued that the evidence had been mishandled and contaminated. In one video shown to the court, they said that, quote, one can see Miss Rainier opening the evidence without gloves, handling both the beer can and the towel without gloves, and commingling the items together. Who knows where else it was? When Miss Rainier was questioned, she stated that, quote, I needed to pick up the energy off that can. I don't want my hands covered. The prosecution argued that the evidence found in the notebook and Gribben's background only backed up the DNA evidence. It also showed that the two men had a relationship prior to the murder itself. Gribben disputes all the evidence and maintains that he never knew Leo nor went to his home. Even though they have no murder weapon, Gribben's trial is set to begin in August, where he faces a life sentence. What do you think? Right now, Mark Gribben is innocent until proven guilty. But for me, DNA, his contact info, and birthday noted in the home of the victim, this is looking like it might be a case cracked. I would like to thank lawandcrime.com, CBS12.com, the Palm Beach Post, newspapers.com, and the Orlando Sentinel. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case, and here she is to discuss it with us now. Christy, I feel like there's something missing in this story, and it was at me so badly I actually went trying to find it, looking through articles, and I still haven't been able to. One publication wrote, the note next to the dead man's body didn't offer much of any clues. Mark, Phoenix House, it had the street address on 5 Mile Road, Plymouth, Michigan, had the zip code 48170, and then this weird number of 179237. Searching on the address, which I did drop me right in front of the Detroit Department of Corrections jail facility, or what it used to be there. It isn't there anymore. It's since been knocked down. Was this missed in the original investigation? It's just so weird to me that you basically had identifiable information taking this down all the way to the guy's actual inmate number and his first name. I mean, even if you don't figure out the thing about his birthday, you got a lot of things that are working in that clue, but nothing happens. This goes to cold case, and then years later.
They had to have looked into this some way. I mean, what drew me to this case was the simplicity of the beer can. But when you start looking into it, all these other questions come up. I mean, they had the address and the inmate number. They're officers. They should be able to look at this. And I would think, could that be an inmate number?
Yeah, well, and I know that we've got this thing where, Mark is saying, I don't know. And there's some people that will use that all the way while they're being led to their cell, basically. Just say, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I had nothing to do with this. And admittedly, in an investigation, I'm sure that could be a bit of a stonewall. That can be tough. But if you were able to track this guy down, figure out that it's Mark Gribbins, get a picture of him, then go back to put that in a photo lineup and go back to the witnesses at Leo's apartment who said there was someone there that day. They were able to make a composite sketch off of them. Put the photo lineup to them, see if they hit on the right guy. Like, there seems like there should have been some connectivity here before, and I don't know how it was missed. But clearly, one way or another, I have to think it was investigated, but there was some stopgap that happened.
I really find it interesting that Gribbin denies ever having been in the house or knowing Leo. His DNA is there, his name, his address, his birth date, and it's not just written down, it's on the calendar. How does he think he's going to get away with that?
I don't know. But he's still using it as a defense all the way up to today, it sounds like. And of course, we have his lawyer then talking about, hey, we don't know how the DNA got on there. And even regardless, it's not the murder weapon. But I think the problem with that statement is it's interacting with the crime scene. It's clear that the beer happened after the murder because of the placement and the fact that the can is clean except for the bottom that was set in blood. So if you do attach him to that beer, you effectively have him. Yeah, you can't necessarily prove he was there. It could have been someone else came in and killed Leo. They left. Mark came in and had a beer. I mean, I know it doesn't sound logical at all.
No.
But I think the lawyer's making half of a decent point in terms of this doesn't prove that he was the guy that murdered him. But what it does prove is Mark was there after Leo was killed. So I think that's a bit of a tough angle on both sides.
Oh, yeah. And what about the bloody towel? I mean, Noreen handled it. She had it in her possession. That was evidence.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing any mention of that. I'm kind of looking through the current articles. Everything's about the beer can, but the towel, investigators thought that the murderer used this to clean themselves off. Shouldn't there be DNA all over that as well?
You would think so.
Yeah, especially if there was any injury that might have happened to Mark. But it seems like the culprit in this, it was a very quick, it's one stab wound.
Yeah, and it was fatal.
Yeah. So there was something else. I went and watched the 48 Hours episode, at least the pieces of the episode that are available online. Noreen shocked the investigators with her description of the victim, which I was, I've looked into a lot of cases like this. I've been looking for the story of the psychic that actually solved the police case for literally years now.
Yeah.
And it's just weird to me that investigators are like, oh, look, she's described the victim. It's always the information that doesn't really necessarily help. I mean, you guys have a picture, you know what he looks like. So what's that information do for you? I don't know. But she went on to describe that the murderer was not there alone, that there was a second person, that this was a female accomplice. She even went to give her a name. She said that this was someone named Wanda W. And that this female had previously been picked up for prostitution. It does open an interesting question for me. I don't know that I buy into any of Wanda's existence, but it does open up, just because of the conversation about the can and interacting with the crime scene. What if there was a second person there? Are they going to try to trot that out as a defense and say, no, Mark didn't do this, it was Wanda W. or someone else? Because once again, the DNA isn't tied to a murder weapon necessarily.
No, and they never found any evidence that a Wanda was there or that anyone else was involved. And the whole Wanda thing just bothers me. If it's just fodder that was thrown out there in a psychic vision, it can really screw things up.
Yeah.
They have at least a partial name. They have a profession. They know there's been an arrest record. They have something solid to look into if they want to.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, I know that I'm certainly going to be keeping my eyes on this trial. I really want to understand those investigative steps before what was the gap in terms of connecting to him based off the notepad. I want to know where the towel is, and I want to see what happens with this evidence, because his defender's right, man. I mean, she was handling this stuff like crazy. I wouldn't have been surprised at all if they would have come up with the DNA result and said, we think Noreen's the killer. Because her DNA is literally at the can in that picture. But
it does kind of make you hurt.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, I do hope that, Leo's children are seeking justice, I'm sure, at this point. So
definitely.
Hope it goes well on that front. Thank you so much for all your help on this today, Christy. And I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters Brandy Fry, Sigrid O'Hearn, Jennifer Dixon, and Angela Welch Sola. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee, like Watcher recently did. We know that learning about the mechanisms that help support and find justice in these cases is important to helping us understand the many unsolved cases we also cover. And we really appreciate your support in allowing us to continue doing that. Remember, you can get another Lord and Art story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit seriouslymysterious.com and remember to subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe below and hit that bell icon if you'd like to catch one of our weekly Secret Studio live shows. And of course, I'll be back with a new unsolved mystery for you on Friday, right here on the Lord and Arts channel.